Well, the Denver Broncos beat the New England Patriots 20-7 at Coors Field on Wednesday. And wait a minute, that was the Rockies, not the Broncos? A football score over at Coors Field. 20-7 was the final on that one. Just an incredible week for the Colorado Rockies. And as you see on the screen, it is trade deadline week as well. We've got a ton of good stuff to cover here on the show. I'm Christian, live from the Toyota Lounge here on the corner of Colfax and York. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. We are so pumped to be with you guys this Friday morning. It's the last show of the week and also the second to last show before we get into the final day of the trade deadline. The trade deadline wraps up on July 30th. We've already got a couple moves circulating about Major League Baseball right now. We had an incredible game that we've got to get to as well on Wednesday. The Rockies tying their franchise record for most runs scored in a single game. 20 they put up against the Boston Red Sox in front of probably like 15,000 Red Sox fans as well. Cal Quantrill clearing up the benches a little bit with arguably one of the best chirping moments I've ever seen in Major League Baseball. We got all of that to cover here shortly. But before we get started, I got to recognize our partners over at Volo Sports. And I want to tell you a quick little story because when Marissa and I moved to Denver just about 2 years ago, we were trying to kind of get into the swing of things here in Denver. And we had a friend tell us, hey, go check out this Volo Sports crew. It's a really fun, way to get involved. So we went and we joined the Beer in Hand Kickball League, which was weird to say the least at first, but can I tell you, I had the best time of my life running around with this little solo cup filled with some beer or water or whatever you want to put in there and trying not to spill it as I play kickball. One of the games I played at as well was dumping rain over at City Park, and the amount of times I got to see Marissa fall and spill beer and water all over the place was incredible. But if you're involved in Volo Sports, you've got to check out their Volo Pass. It's a premier monthly membership program that gives members unlimited access to sports, events, social activities every night of the week. The Volo Pass members, they get Sport and Social Club for only $20 a month. It's the best way you can meet new people. Like I said, it got us connected right away when we moved here to Denver. You get unlimited access to pickups, league drop-ins as a substitute, league discounts of up to $50, free and discounted access to tournaments, fitness classes, and events, all of that and more. So sign up on the Volo app using code DNVR3 to get a Volo Pass for only $10 a month for the first 3 months. Also, we're talking about that 20-run beatdown that the Rockies put on the Red Sox. Well, if you were using Bet365, you would have been living life because over at Bet365, they've got something called the early MLB payout offer, which means that if you're a winner if your team goes 5 runs ahead with an instant payout, and the Rockies went just a little bit past 5 runs up over the Red Sox on Wednesday. They got instant payout for parlay and same-game parlay selections. Those are going to be marked as winners if your team goes up by 5 runs or more with the Bet365 baseball early payout offer. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe every sport should be epic. Right now, new customers can choose between 2 offers when they open an account at Bet365. Use code DNVR365 to sign up, deposit $10, and choose between either bet and get offer, place a bet of $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets, or first bet safety net offer, placing a bet of up to $1,000. And if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right. Let's talk MLB trade deadline. It's the moment you have all been waiting for. Major League Baseball trade deadline just a couple days away. And the Rockies are in kind of a dangerous spot right now because they're in what you would like to call a rebuild, or as the front office calls it, a reconstruction era. Whatever you want to call it, however you do. Whatever verbiage you want to use there. The Rockies aren't going to make the playoffs this year. So what do you do when you know that your team isn't going to be making the playoffs? You've got to sell assets and bring in value to your team. So how do you do that? You've got to make decisions that reflect the current phase that your team is in. So this is why it kind of puts the Rockies in a tough spot. On one hand, the Rockies can't be stationary, right? You can't be sitting around twiddling your thumbs doing nothing at the trade deadline. You've got to sell. You've got to bring in value to the team. You've got to be taking steps to move forward. But on the other hand, you've got to be careful because you, at all costs, cannot get worse. And I know that sounds so simple and really basic, but here's what I mean by that. If you're the Los Angeles Dodgers and you go out and you make a bad trade, the Dodgers did make a trade, by the way, earlier today. We're going to get into that later. But if you go and you make a trade that ends up losing you value over the next couple years, you have enough depth to sustain your team through the playoffs and potentially through the World Series. The Rockies don't have that depth. The Rockies are a team that is trying to build that depth. So if you go and you make a trade that loses you value over the coming years, that could extend your rebuild 1 year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years down the road. So you've got to be careful. You have to play your cards right. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, how do you do that? You've got to sell. You've got to build team value. You need depth in your bullpen, first and foremost. You're a team that struggles to find the consistency out of the bullpen that has been the killer for the Rockies, not just today, or not just this time of year, but also in the years previous. But you've got to be able to build that depth, and so that comes through the farm system. Now we're well aware that the Rockies have been building up their farm system over the past few months and few years. They do have some young guys that are really starting to come into their own in that minor league program. Got a couple guys that have actually made the transition from Spokane all the way up to Double and Triple A. So we're going to be seeing some young talent rising through the ranks for the Rockies in the coming months and in the coming years. And right now, if you're Colorado, though, you've got to be building depth in a much more umbrella term. And that means getting rid of as much value as you can right now to replace that in what fits for a team that's in a rebuild. And I really like what the Rockies have been doing coming out of this second half of the year, because you go and you beat the Giants 2 out of 3 in your first series after the All-Star break. Your offense has been absolutely dominating. And then you go and you beat the Red Sox in the exact same way. You have a 12-inning extra inning 9-8 win and a walk-off by young Tovar, getting things done for the Rockies. You've been really boosting this value in these last few weeks since the All-Star break, and that's put you in a good spot because now you're in an opportunity to sell some assets potentially as we prepare for this final trade deadline. But before I get into who the guys are going to be looking to sell and what possible pawns could be moving for the Rockies, I want to talk about who is not for sale, who we have already determined is off the market for the Colorado Rockies. And we've heard from the front office that RyMac, Ryan McMahon, is currently listed out of those trade conversations for a variety of reasons. I would argue that one of the best reasons, or one of the biggest reasons, not the best, but one of the biggest reasons that I've heard, is just that ownership, front office, they like what RyMac brings to the table. They like a good middle infielder, third base, middle infield guy who can kind of hold down that spot. And we know the Rockies have a history of guys that really play well in that infield slot. RyMac is a team player. He's also on what front office considers a team-friendly contract. He's owed $44 million through the next few years, all the way through 2027. You could consider that a team-friendly deal. So I understand where the front office is going when they say we don't want to trade RyMac. But it brings up this point for me that I've said in the past, but I'm going to say it for the first time on this show. If you can lose as a team with star players, you can just as easily lose without those star players. So if you've got a guy like RyMac, who is your lone all-star this year, he's been absolutely crushing it, a little inconsistent at moments, but still having good output defensively. He's been playing gold glove defense throughout the year. He's been consistent offensively, over at least the last few months. The issue that I have with RyMac, though, is that the Rockies haven't gotten significantly better. And he's getting, I think he's 31, 32 years old. He's getting to that point in his career where he's starting to get close to Charlie Blackmon territory where you're like, hey, the guy's good. He's got some good output. But does he fit with where we're at in the rebuild? Does he fit with guys like Ezekiel Tovar or, Brenton Doyle or, just young talent like that you're trying to bring in and shape your team around? Now, I know there's the argument about you've got a veteran player and that veteran guy is going to be able to give you that value for those younger players and help bring them up. There is an importance to having some veteran talent on your team. I'm not against having RyMac on the team. I just kind of look at it as, if you're looking at it from a results-oriented standpoint, the Rockies haven't quite gotten the results that I want to see out of them when they've had RyMac on the team. He's a fun player to watch, don't get me wrong, but he has so much value bottled up into his trade value because he's on that team-friendly contract, because he's been really putting it together defensively. I mean, this is a guy that has been lights out for the Rockies, and I think you can use that. You could have used that to get some really good value. And if I'm the Rockies, I understand where they're going with this, but I also just feel like at this point you're still not in that place where you're trying to hold on to veteran players and keep those cards close to your belt. I would have been okay with them if they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to go out and we're going to move forward. We're going to move on from RyMac and put him out there. I do know that he, has brought up the idea of wanting to stay in Colorado for his own personal reasons. He's got a family here. All of those things are very admirable. But at the same time, this is a business decision. I think the Rockies would have been in a good spot if they had put RyMac out there on the trade deadline, on the trade block. It's the highest value I've seen out of RyMac in his time with the Rockies. So just a little interesting, I think, that they decided to completely write him off from possible trade talks. But that's where we're at right now. So he's off the market. Chris Bryant, another guy that I don't see being someone they trade. I think that's more from a financial standpoint. I mean, you invest $182 million into a guy for 7 years, and you haven't gotten anything out of him. So, we've compared him to Russell Wilson and saying, this is the Russell Wilson contract for the Rockies. I understand them not wanting to get rid of him, but there is that conversation of, do you just kind of swallow those losses and trade Chris Bryant maybe in a package deal to try and boost up your minor league prospects to a team that desperately needs some veterans? And Chris Bryant does still have value. He's still got the ability to be a good player. I mean, we're seeing bits and pieces of that. He broke out of his hit slump. And really by hit slump, I just meant he's been injured forever. So he broke out of that on Wednesday, as did the entire rest of the Rockies team. But so you've still got some value out of Chris Bryant that you could be throwing out there. And, so maybe this was one of those situations where the Rockies want to count their losses. I just don't know if another team is going to want to put a $182 million contract on their backs. So that's kind of where they're at with those two players. And then really, everyone else is kind of up in the air at this point. You've got some guys that we're willing to sell, that we're willing to talk about, and we're going to get into that here in a moment. But first, I want to transition to, again, thanking one of our great partners over at Circa Sportsbook. Circa Sportsbook is one of our favorite partners because not only do they have an amazing facility out in Vegas, but they've also got some really great amenities through the sports betting world. Circa Sportsbook, one of the things I love most about them is that they've got just the best customer service. Whenever you have an issue with sports betting, whether it be, in just setting up an account or having some sort of technical difficulty, as all sports betting has over the course of your time, Circa Sports customer service is top notch. There's real people behind the Circa Sports brand. They can resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike any other sports books who use chat box. All aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main Circa Sportsbook at Circa Sports Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So be sure to head over and download that Circa Sports app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made while they're physically located in the state of Colorado. You must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. Also got to give a shout out to our friends over at Coors Light. And I got to say, one of the most challenging things about this time of year is you're just sitting on your hands waiting for anything to happen. You go out to a Rockies game, you're checking your phone, you're checking your notification. You've got Jeff passing on your phone. You got the notification saying, what is happening? Are my Rockies doing anything right now? And at the moment, the answer is no. So what do? You head upstairs to the rooftop, maybe before the game, gets underway, and you get yourself a $3 Coors Light. You choose to chill with a cold, refreshing Coors Light, and there is no better way to chill and relax, take off some of the stress and edge of this trade deadline season by choosing a cold, refreshing Coors Light. When you embrace the chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Make the most of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get your Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart if you're not at the game. You can go online at CoorsLight.com/DNVR and celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, located in Golden, Colorado. If you haven't been out to the Coors Brewing Company headquarters out in Golden, that's a fun place to go as well. But as always, choose to chill with Coors Light. All right, let's jump into who is for sale. We continue our trade deadline talks, sponsored by Indeed. And let's get into who's on the trade block for the Rockies. We talked about who's kind of off limits right now. I would say at this point, you're just kind of starting to see there is a wide variety of guys that are open to be traded. But I think the biggest area that we're going to see the Rockies start to unload some guys is with the catcher spot. You've got Elias Diaz, who is he's still got a lot of value to bring for the Rockies. He was a 2023 All-Star MVP. He's got 5 home runs on the season, 30 RBIs. He's hitting .283. His defense is also superb. But the issue with Diaz right now is his value's kind of tanking a little bit these last few months. He, in June, was nursing that calf injury. He was on the IL for 16 games, came back for a few games, and then went back on the injured list just a few days ago. Said he was having some tightness in his other calf, so both calves have been having an issue for Diaz. Jacob Stallings had came in and picked up some innings behind the plate for the Rockies. But I would still say that Diaz is one of those guys that you can get some good value for. And I also think Stallings is up there as well. These are two guys, kind of veteran players, Stallings especially. They just don't really fit into this whole rebuild phase that the Rockies are in right now. I would expect 100%, and I use that word very literally, I would expect the Rockies to unload either Diaz, Stallings, or both. You've got some young catchers that are coming up through the pipeline that I think the Rockies could lean on. You're still bringing up talent. Like I said, you're looking for a wild card run in the next couple years, probably by 2026. So I'm okay if you get rid of some of these veteran guys like Diaz and Stallings. Use the value that you had to go with them. Diaz has picked it up in the month of June. He's batting .303 with 5 home runs. But since July, he, like I said, was struggling a little bit with those injuries. Stallings has been really stepping up, though, lately. He's batting .255 with 4 home runs, and he's been playing some good minutes for the Rockies in these last few games with the Diaz injury kind of going back and forth. So keep an eye on the 2 catchers for the Rockies. And then you go into the middle infield, and I talked about RyMac being someone that I would have liked to have seen being out on the trade block. He is not. So RyMac's going to be hanging out in there. But Brendan Rodgers is an interesting case for me because he's still got 1 year left in team control. Then he's a remaining free agent. After that, he's hitting .263 with 6 home runs. Middle infield is the Rockies' specialty, and you can go through the history of phenomenal, amazing Rockies players that have come through the rotation and made their way up through the minor leagues, and the Rockies have kind of built them into the star players that they are. Brendan Rodgers, I don't know if he ever got to the peak of where the Rockies wanted him to be, but he's still a solid player that you could potentially package to bring in some younger guys, put some more pitching maybe into your minor league rotation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Brendan Rodgers get packaged together and get thrown around. He's hitting 263 with 6 home runs on the year. He's got a lot of young talent that still has some room to grow, but also can go into a team that needs that middle infield spot and show up ready to play. And that's, I think, one of the benefits of getting a guy like Brendan Rodgers. So look to see maybe someone, maybe going out to like a Texas squad or, even like the Blue Jays, teams like that are really just kind of trying to get guys that can show up ready to play right now. Brendan Rodgers might be their guy. And then we get into pitching. And I know we talk about pitching being something that the Rockies need to get more of, but you've got to get the right type of pitching. And that's the point that I want to hammer home in this show when we're talking about selling pitchers, because if you're the Colorado Rockies, there are guys that fit your profile as a team that's rebuilding and guys that don't. And I think you've got a handful of pitchers that don't fit that rebuild physique for the Colorado Rockies. So I got to start with a guy like Jalen Beeks. Jalen Beeks, 31 years old. He's getting on the older side. He just doesn't quite fit that notion of young talent rebuild. Beeks, he does have some really good stats. And I was actually looking at this. This was posted by Brooksgate today. They listed out a bunch of players, a bunch of pitchers. Yeah, relief pitchers with the most high leverage innings for each team this season, ranked by their ERA in those situations. Jalen Beeks has been, although his ERA isn't great compared to some of these other pitchers, he's gotten a lot of high leverage innings, 17 and a half innings, when there are guys on scoring, in scoring position, guys on base. He has been kind of the guy that the Rockies have gone to. So he does still have some value as you look ahead to what the Rockies could potentially get from him. Jalen Beeks is a guy that we might see them package as a deal. Cal Quantrill is another one of those guys. And Cal, my God, his stock has gone to the moon since that game against the Boston Red Sox when he was chirping against Reese McGuire. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail here in a second. But Cal Quantrill, with Herman expecting to make his return, he is currently injured right now on rehab assignment, but that seems to be very temporary. He's expected to make a return, sign a big contract, and there's also some exciting guys coming up in the pitching rotation for the Rockies. So I would see Quantrill being that energized reliever, or starter, I should say, that could be coming in for a program and going out and getting the job done. We saw him throw a very good game. He pitches with a lot of energy for the Rockies. He's someone that you could see going out on the sell list. And Austin Gomber, another one of those guys. Value is a little bit low right now because he's been struggling. He's only 2-6 this season with a 4.7 ERA. But again, a guy who can go in and show up if you're a team that needs pitchers desperately right now. And so I could see any one of those guys getting either packaged into a deal or just going straight up on the trade block. And so we'll continue to keep an eye out for that. There's a lot of other trade deadline talk going on right now. We're going to save that for the end of the show as we get close. And I want to see if, other teams make any moves right now. It looks like as of now we're kind of up to date, so I'll go through what we've seen over the last few days here shortly. But all of this trade deadline talk today, we'll give a shout out to our friends over at Indeed as they are sponsoring our trade deadline talk. Brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this show can head over to Indeed to get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ALLCITY. That's ALLCITY. Indeed.com/ALLCITY. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right. Game recap. It's a moment you've all been waiting for. What the hell happened on Wednesday The Rockies put up a 20-piece against the Boston Red Sox in Boston. I mean, it felt like it was in Boston. It was actually at Coors Field. But what an incredible game. You had home runs, grand slams. You put up a 6-piece on the Red Sox in the first inning. I actually put out a tweet saying, on Tuesday, the Red Sox put up a 6-piece against the Rockies and ended up going to win that game 6-0 in arguably one of the most boring games that we saw at Coors Field this year. The Rockies went on to do the exact same thing, but the difference is they didn't stop. They just kept going. And then at a certain point in the game, I know you guys all probably saw this, but at a certain point in the game, you got the backup catcher, Reese McGuire, who I actually was on his rival high school team. He went to Kentwood High School in the greater Seattle, Washington area. I went to Tahoma High School. He got drafted my sophomore year of high school. I got to pitch against him as a freshman in high school and sat him down on a lofted 2-strike cutter that stayed way too high in the zone. It was probably a beach ball looking pitch that I got away with because I will say it was probably the most home run hittable pitch I've ever thrown in my life. And Reese McGuire just happened to whiff on it. It probably looked too good to be true to him. So I can say, as a freshman in high school, I sat down Reese McGuire, who went on to get drafted, I believe it was 4th overall to the Pittsburgh Pirates the next year. I mean, there was like 20 scouts at that game. That was the peak of my high school career, by the way.
Look at you.
That's my little plug there for my high school career with Reese McGuire. But so Reese McGuire, fast forward now, what is it, 7 years later, 6-7 years later, dude's playing as the backup catcher for the Red Sox. Goes out, hits a little routine fly ball. Now, I don't know if he chirped a little bit as he hit that fly ball to Quantrill as he was going down. It was hard to tell if McGuire was the one who initiated it. But all I saw was after, as McGuire is kind of jogging down to first base, Quantrill turns around and just unloads. And I'm not going to say verbatim what Cal Quantrill said, because if you scour Twitter, you'll find what he said. Even for our standards, we're not throwing that out there on the air. It was a bit raunchy.
What?
I mean, for context, it happened to do with a situation that McGuire was involved in 4 years ago in a super mall parking lot where he thought he was by himself. He was feeling a little good. Maybe there was some good deals at Target that day. He was seeing a 40% off sign at Kohl's and got a little excited, maybe a little too excited, and had a little moment with himself in the car, got caught by the police, immediately apologized from what it looked like in the police report, but regardless, you can't be doing that, dude. Oh, man.
Oh, my God, the Olympics are
The Olympics are going off. They were getting a little excited about that game as well. So, yeah, long story short, Reese McGuire got a little too excited, got arrested for that. And I'm thinking in the back of his head, he was probably thinking, all right, I made a mistake. Let's move on. It's long past. This was 4 years ago. And then he comes out to Coors Field. He's the backup catcher for the Red Sox. He gets thrown in the third game. Your team's losing, God, what was it, like 8 runs or something like that at that point? And he gets under one. He's jogging down to first, and he looks over, and Quantrill's chirping at him. And what is he chirping at him about? Well, it was that fateful moment 4 years ago where Reese got a little too excited. And so, of course, Reese took offense to it, as he should, to be fair. Like, let's be completely fair. Let's be completely unbiased here for a moment. Reese is right to take offense to that. Like, he's got to defend himself. But also, like, Quantrill just whipped that thing out of his back pocket like he was holding on to that. And what makes it even better is that, McGuire was the backup catcher. Like, I mean, Tiff, do you think that what was going through his mind in that situation?
That
like,
ready.
how does that even transpire?
There's got to be some pettiness in there somewhere. Like, they have a relationship somehow, because that is far too planned, far too prepared to be like, oh, if that motherfucker pisses me off, he's done.
I just, and it wasn't like, I mean, I would understand if he was like the star player. Like I look back on like some of the best like chirps in all of sports, you know, like Shannon Sharp going at Derek Thomas, you know, getting under his skin to you know, or like Michael Jordan going after dudes and you know, trying to get in like these star players' heads. Kobe Bryant was a king at this as well. But that's like the best player on the team where you're like, I got to find other ways to like get under these dudes' skin. This is the backup catcher for the Red Sox. You're up by 8. I actually talked to Quantrill after the game, and you know, he admitted, he's like, yeah, look, man, like I recognize that we were up by like 8 at that point, but like, you know, I just play with a lot of intensity. I don't know, that goes a little beyond intensity, but what a baller, man. I mean, talk about just playing with energy. It doesn't matter if you're up 20. He's out there ready to go. And so, of course, that led to the whole, you know, fight thing going back and forth. No one ended up throwing punches, but what a wild thing to have happen. Bud Black did talk about it after the game, and he gave the most politically correct answer I've ever heard, where he was just like, yeah, I don't really know what happened. You did know what happened. I didn't really know what happened, but, you know, like he plays with a lot of energy, and you love to see that as a manager. Like, dude, you knew exactly what happened. So that was pretty fun to see, getting a little feisty there. We had Brenton Doyle come out with a grand salami later in that game. And I will go back and say, by the way, I think one of the coolest things about that whole bench clearing moment is the Rockies went up and put 6 on the Red Sox the very next inning. Like, not just like, you know, like sometimes those kind of little kerfluffles, as Patrick Saunders called it, little kerfluffles, they can kind of turn a team around. You're losing by whatever you were losing by at the time, and you say, okay, like we're gonna jump back and make a comeback here. No, the Rockies went and put 6 more out there and said, yeah, we're not gonna let you guys get back into this game. Doyle hit a grand slam. The Rockies continue their home run streak. They now have the most home runs, by the way, by any team in Major League Baseball in their last 33 games. They have 58 home runs in 33 games. And to put that into perspective, by the way, the Rockies only hit 57 home runs in their first 69 games of the season, which was the 5th fewest in Major League Baseball. Right now, they are tied for the most home runs over the last 33 games in Major League Baseball. So the Rockies are just absolutely swinging the bats. I mean, go to Coors Field anytime this last couple weeks, and it has been home run derby at Coors for both sides, actually, too. We also saw the longest home run of the year. What was that? Jorge Soler with the Giants, who hit one 478 over the fountains out there at center field. I mean, that put Shohei Ohtani's home run to the test a little bit from earlier in the year. So the Rockies, although they are still too far back to even comprehend from the playoff spot, from the wild card, they're playing some fun baseball right now. And can I just say, is that all we can ask for, Tiff? I mean, like when you have a team that's struggling on the year, I mean, the Rockies are still selling 30,000 tickets per game, at least, if not more, on the weekends. And fans are getting a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. Those Boston fans got a good show all series.
I posted a video, and it was of the sad Boston fans just like slowly walking out after a 12-inning overtime, extra innings loss. I mean, in Boston, that's a 2 a.m. end time for that game. And how miserable is that if you stayed up on the East Coast till 2 in the morning and you got to watch your team get walked off in that way? How miserable do you think they felt?
With how many games there are in the season, I can't imagine many kept the game on.
Yeah, oh, totally. But like, also, it was exciting. I mean, it was 8-8, or it was 6-6 and 8-8. Yeah, and I was one of the guys I follow on Twitter, Jared Carabas. He's obviously a diehard Red Sox fan. He covers the Red Sox, does a podcast for them, and he just tweeted after the game, pain, period. And it was like 2:07 a.m., Eastern time. I'm like, yeah, to be fair, though, we've all been there. Maybe not the 2 in the morning games, but you've stayed up way too late to to watch your team hopefully win a game that's like in the 16th inning and then they just lose it on a heartbreaker.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime there's like 8 o'clock games here, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime the game starts at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I'm like, what are we doing, guys? I got to go to bed.
Well, and the Red Sox, they actually have a chance too. I mean, they're a good team. They're only a few games back in the wild card and in that American League. So it's not like the Red Sox, like these games matter. These games matter for them. For us, it's like, hey, that was fun. We got to go have a 12-inning walk-off win. But like for the Red Sox, this is serious. Like they gotta figure this out. And we talked about it on the last show. Like, what's the most annoying fan base to see it at Coors Field? And we came to the consensus that the Dodgers fans are the most annoying fans to see at Coors Field. But God, it felt so good to send those Red Sox home with a 2-loss series loss to the Rockies. A little side note, by the way, on this whole 20-run note. The only 2 teams to score 20 runs this year happen to be 2 of the worst teams in baseball. The Rockies and the Oakland, soon-to-be Vegas, A's. The 2 teams that have scored 20 runs or more this season. I will say, though, the Oakland A's have been putting on a show these last few weeks, and in front of about 15 fans over there at the Oakland Coliseum. So good for the A's, good for the Rockies. There are good teams that are absolutely imploding. The Seattle Mariners, we're going to talk about them later in the show. What a dumpster fire the Mariners are right now. Although they did just trade for Randy Arozarena. There's one of your little trade tidbits for the rest of the show. But the Mariners suck. So they need to figure it out. All my friends and family living in Seattle, my cousin, who is a diehard Mariners fan, she might be going through a mid to early life crisis right now. I think the depression that she's in from a sports perspective has everything to do with the Seattle Mariners right now. So tough to be a Mariners fan at the moment, although they got a little bit of a boost there with Arozarena. But good to be a Rockies fan at the moment. We'll take it. We don't get to say that very often. And I don't know if that's going to be something that continues over the next few weeks, months, years. But we will take it. So, good for the Rockies. But, another thing that is really fun to kind of, spend some time around is our friends over at Shady Rays. If you like sunglasses, you got to get involved with Shady Rays. And I've got another little story here. The other day, I was getting ready to go to the Rockies game, as I do, because it's my job now. What a crazy world that is. I was getting ready for the Rockies game. I go to put on my old sunglasses because that's just all I had at the moment. And as I'm pulling them over my head, they snap in half. It's the worst thing. It's like 150 degrees in Denver. There is smoke. It's the worst air quality in like the world, it feels like. Actually, I think it was the 9th worst air quality in the world at the time. And I have no sunglasses now. And I remember thinking to myself, Marissa has sunglasses that she's had for years that have never broke. And what are those sunglasses? They're Shady Rays. And so Marissa's giving me shit as I'm leaving for the game, and she's like, you should have gotten my Shady Rays. Like, these have never broken. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm kicking myself on the way to the game, like, I got to get on a pair of Shady Rays. So Shady Rays, learn from me. Learn from my mistakes. Shady Rays is the way to go because they're reliable. They don't snap when you're just putting them over your head like a normal pair of sunglasses. You can actually wear them for years like Marissa does, and they are reliable and they're sustainable. They hold you through. You can go fishing with them. You can go out rafting. You can go play sports. You can do whatever you want. And Shady Rays has got you covered. They fit amazingly. They look good. I know my next pair of sunglasses is gonna be Shady Rays because I am tired of having issues with sunglasses breaking or just not fitting correctly, sliding down my face when I get all sweaty. It's not good. So Shady Rays, they've got you covered. And they've got a really good deal for DNVR listeners. Exclusively for just our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars, over 5,000 people have given them a 5-star rating. That's Shady Rays. There is nothing better for you and your sunglasses. Also, you know what sounds amazing right now? You talk about warm weather, baseball, all of that this time of year. Well, there's nothing better than some good fried chicken. And the best fried chicken that you could ever get is Raising Cane's. I mean, look at that. Look at those chicken fingers that you see on the bottom of your screen. That little purple blanket at the bottom has got the good chicken fingers on it. God, there's nothing better than Raising Cane's. And they've got so many good locations, so many cool places to go in Colorado. So for cooked to order, hand-battered chicken fingers, race into Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers, and get them even faster by ordering online at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app, Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. One love. I'll be heading there shortly after the show because there's no Rockies games today. So, you know, the next best thing is to go over to Raising Cane's and get some good chicken fingers. Let's talk about what's happening around Major League Baseball. And I want to start by talking about this no-hitter that was thrown by Dylan Cease. But I want to show you a video here first because 2 years ago, Dylan Cease was going up with the White Sox. He was throwing with the White Sox. You see the clip here. And he has 2 outs in the 9th inning going on a no-hitter, and he gives up the no-hitter to Arraez. And Luis Arraez breaks up the no-hitter, but then fast forward 2 years later, 2 outs in the 9th inning, Dylan Cease on the mound, and he gets the no-hitter. This was yesterday's celebration on the field, but the cool thing, and the reason I show you that clip from before, is because you see that guy who just handed him the ball? That was Arraez who broke up his no-hitter 2 years ago with 2 outs in the 9th inning, and he gives him the game ball. Now a teammate of his, Dylan Cease, gets the game ball as he throws a no-hitter. Only the second no-hitter of the year. What a cool thing. I mean, and also how devastating is that to go and throw a no-hitter all the way up until the 9th inning with 2 outs. Everyone is on their feet. You are 1 out away from history, and Luis Arraez goes and breaks it up for you. I mean, heartbreak, but then to complete, kind of come full circle, come back around, and get the full no-hitter with your teammate being the guy who broke up your no-hitter. I mean, how cool is that? Also, like, for Luis Arraez, who broke up the no-hitter, I bet that's some weight kind of lifted off his shoulders. Like, I know he's a competitor, and, like, you do what you got to do. Like, they all respect each other. But, like, to be able to see your teammate finally get that no-hitter, that's got to be the coolest feeling in the world. So, congrats to Dylan Cease getting the no-hitter. The Padres are hanging out right there in that AL wildcard run. They are a fun team to watch right now, and they've been playing some good baseball. Some not so good news from around Major League Baseball. Christian Yelich has been injured. He has been one of the best hitters in baseball this year. He's been dealing with some back injury, which I have a lot of familiarity with. I injured my back when I was in high school. Actually fractured my lower spine. Not something I recommend. If you're playing baseball or just living life, try not to break your back. It tends to hurt and limit you in everything that you can do. So that's my little, advice for the day. But Christian Yelich did make the decision to not undergo season-ending back surgery, and instead he decided to rest and rehab. He will likely undergo surgery in the offseason. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the Brewers are embracing their playoff push. They are in the playoff picture. They're in the run. So Brewers are trying to get out there and make something happen. And you got to have Christian Yelich on your team if you're going to do that. So interesting decision, though, because if I'm Christian Yelich and I'm the Brewers, okay, yeah, you're in this playoff window where you want to take advantage of where you are right now. But you also got to be careful because Yelich is a guy that you can still get a couple more years at least of hopefully peak play in his career. And so got to be careful of not overdoing it. He's just going to be resting and rehabbing for a little bit, but we'll keep an eye on how that goes. Speaking of injuries, A's pitcher Mason Miller fractured his pinky Monday by punching a table following not an A's loss, but an A's win. Don't really know what you're doing there, Mason Miller. And I did have some interesting stats for Mason Miller. Mason Miller right now leads the entire Major League Baseball with the highest ranking while pitching with an ERA in high leverage innings for his team this season. He has a .71 ERA over 12 and a half innings pitched with runners in scoring position and in high leverage situations, basically in the latter half of the game, where you could potentially be winning or losing a game based off your pitching. Mason Miller is ranked at the top of that. So that's a huge blow to the A's, who, again, are one of the worst teams in baseball right now, or this year. But yeah, to fracture your pinky by punching a table following a victory, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, can't do that. You can't do that. So that's a little weird one. Clayton Kershaw, though, has made his return from being injured. Kershaw is back. He had his first outing with the Dodgers, and as if the Dodgers couldn't get any better, he pitched damn well. And so I did have a picture, though, I wanted to show of his cleats, because he did feature some really interesting cleats that were showcasing and highlighting some artwork from his children, his kid, who actually drew on his cleats. That's the first picture there you see of his cleats. Those are the cleats that he brought out, and Clayton Kershaw getting his special high-end cleats. Maybe he's got to rock those cleats a lot more, because he pitched well in his first game back, coming back from injury. And I also, like we were talking about, I know the DNVR Nuggets podcast has been talking about Jokic's new cleat, his new shoe, and how he has, his little wedding ring carrier in it, and all of that cool stuff. Like, I think it's cool that players are now getting involved in, like, kind of bringing the emotional side into their, making it really personal when it comes to their shoes or their cleats. That whole thing with Jokic, like, I know Marissa and I were talking about it because she played college basketball, and she used to always say she never had, like, wedding rings when she was playing college basketball, at least not that I'm aware of.
She didn't. She wasn't married before
She was not married to me at that time, so that would be news to me. But she would say, like, if you have jewelry or anything like that, like, you would have to tie it up to your shoelaces. Or even when she works out now, she goes to the gym, and she used to tie her, like, our wedding ring to her shoes, which always seemed terrifying to me. I'm like, dude, are you gonna, like, one day she's gonna come to me and be like, love, sorry, I lost our wedding ring while I was,
didn't realize my
doing
shoe
some
was
hang
untied.
cleans. Yeah. So, maybe I need to get her a pair of the Jokic shoes to get that little ring holder in there. That would probably be ideal. But yeah, so it's cool that Kershaw and guys like that are using those, really personalized shoes. And it helps you to feel a little more, close to home, I guess, when you're out there on the mound. But good for him. Another close to home moment. Speaking of the Olympics, who were getting ready for the Olympic watch party, the opening ceremony going on downstairs. I don't know if you guys could have heard the music going on in the background. The opening ceremony. I'm actually watching Lady Gaga right now. I can see Lady Gaga. She's everywhere, I guess. She's going to be in that new movie. She's singing in Paris at the moment with some peacock feathers behind her head. I don't know. It's Lady Gaga. The Olympic opening ceremony is happening right now, actually. And so that's taken place. But speaking of the Olympics, Mallory Swanson, Dansby Swanson's wife, who plays for the United States women's national soccer team, scored 2 goals in 1 minute in the first game of the Paris Olympics for the U.S. women's soccer team. And so, yeah. So, I mean, what a cool thing for him and his wife you go from having just this success on the baseball field for the Cubs, and your wife's out there crushing it in the Olympics. Talk about a power couple. So good for him, and the Olympics are going to be taking place. And we've got all of you guys covered over here. Yeah, there's the picture of Mallory and Dansby, the power couple of the century. I know. Do we have the little sound effect that is just everyone oohing and aahing? Like, that is a perfect description of them. It kind of pisses me off, actually. I mean, like, good for them, but, stop it. Stop being so cute.
There's a couple of, like, power couples like that. There's this runner in the Olympics. Her husband is so funny on TikTok. He's like, you couldn't get my woman if you tried. Like,
nice. There you go.
So
yeah.
Cute.
Who was that guy? I don't know if you remember this. Oh God, I gotta look it up because it was during the Super Bowl. His wife was making like all of the jackets for like Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes and
the WAG jackets.
Yes. Help me out in the Toyota chat. I mean, what is that? What was his and her name? Because I am totally blanking. Was it Juszczyk? It was a challenging name to pronounce, but like, you know, I mean, he's out there being a great athlete, a great NFL player, and there you go. See, Nomar Garciaparra and Mia Hamm. Yes, that's another one thrown in there. It makes sense. I mean, when you're a pro athlete, like you spend time with either celebrities or pro athletes. Like we talk about Skeens and Livy Dunn. You know, the famous gymnast for LSU and now the famous best pitcher in all of baseball for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, that's a power couple. I hate them with all my guts because that's just annoying. We had Vanessa Hudgens and Cole Tucker, no longer a Rocky, but still a Rocky in our hearts. Now married, you know. So yeah, talk about power couples around the league. But I got to bring it back in here though, because we've got some more trade stuff.
I was like looking at a Forbes list, like, ready to go.
I know.
Like,
we could go on power couples for the rest of the show.
Yes.
Let's rein it back in, Tiff. The trade deadline stuff, all of it, as I mentioned, brought to you by Indeed. Diamondbacks yesterday acquired left-handed pitcher A.J. Puck from the Marlins. I believe that's how his last name is pronounced. It's P-U-K. I'm going with Puck. For minor league prospects, Davison De Los Santos, the infielder, and Andrew Pitar, outfielder. Mariners, I mentioned this earlier. They received Randy Arozarena from Tampa. In exchange, they give the Rays outfielder Aiden Smith, right-handed pitcher Brody Hopkins, and one more player that has not been named yet. The Mariners need a lot more. This is a good thing. I want to start over. This is a good thing for the Mariners. Randy Arozarena, they need hitters. And Randy Arozarena is a guy who can show up in your lineup and get some things done offensively. I do know that the Mariners have one of the best pitching squads in all of baseball right now. They have atrocious hitters. They are one of the worst hitting teams in all of baseball. So a guy like Randy Arozarena is going to help you out a lot. But you need more than that. So we're going to keep an eye on the Mariners because they're a team that's still right up there with the Astros atop the division, but they need more depth. Don't we all? But the Mariners are in it, so they really need that depth. So keep an eye on the Mariners. The Red Sox, coming off that brutal beatdown from the Rockies, they go on and acquire left-handed pitcher, the Big Maple, James Paxton, heading out to Boston. In a deal with the Dodgers, we do not yet know what the Dodgers got out of that, but what the hell don't the Dodgers have? So we'll tell you what the Dodgers got out of that when it comes up. But right now, all we know is the Red Sox are getting left-handed pitcher James Paxton in a deal with the Dodgers. So Paxton, the veteran, started out his career in Seattle. I was actually in Seattle when he was there. They put maple trees out in the bleachers, kind of up above left field. I don't know what they're going to do in Boston, if anything. I mean, he's kind of getting towards the end of his career, but he might be some pitching, some much-needed depth on the pitching squad for the Red Sox. Phillies, our friends over at PHLY, have got some stuff to talk about. Phillies just acquired outfielder Austin Hayes. In a deal with the Orioles, they are going to be sending reliever Sir Anthony Dominguez and center fielder Christian Pash to the Orioles. The Orioles are also in that window. They're in that playoff push, so they've got to be making moves as well. So that's kind of an interesting one to keep an eye on. The Phillies, there's this whole mix of teams right now that are really in that final push on that side of the league in the playoff picture, in the wild card. The Phillies are right there in it. Talking about NL wildcard standings, though, when we talk about the race between the Mets, the Braves, the Cardinals, Arizona, those teams are all a half a game within each other in that National League wild card spot. And then below them, Pittsburgh and Arizona, St. Louis, they're all just one game back. I mean, so this is a wild card race that could go any which direction as the season progresses. And I cannot express enough how important that is to baseball as you get towards the latter half of the season and you've got like 5 teams fighting for that wild card slot. What a fun thing that's going to be to watch. So keep an eye out for those wild card standings as they progress, because there is a fight for the finish, and we still got months left of baseball all the way through September. We are rocking and rolling here. There's one last little story, though, I wanted to throw out there before we jump in, and I'm also keeping an eye on any breaking news that comes up. Nope, just a Verizon alert on my phone. No baseball alerts. The A's, I saw something come out say that the A's are charging $104 to be sitting in the third deck for their final game of the season. Now, look, I know that the A's, it's historic. It's the last game going to be played at the Oakland Coliseum. You know, my grandma and mom, like family, all grew up watching the A's play at the Oakland Coliseum, that cinder block of a stadium out there in Oakland. But $104 to sit in really up in the fog is where you're going to be sitting out in Oakland is robbery from this Oakland A's ownership that has already shit on their fan base for as long as I can remember, and has been tanking so hard from an ownership standpoint to get the hell out of Oakland and get over to Vegas. Vegas has already said, hey, we don't want you. We're not willing to pay to build this $5 billion stadium in the middle of Vegas. So we're going to send you to Sacramento to play out in beautiful, albeit, but small Sacramento. I don't even know what their AAA field is called. It used to be Rayleigh Stadium. So we continue to hear just these insane stories out of Oakland of, you know, this kind of crap happening. You know, when the whole team, when the whole fan base was doing their buy out all the tickets, like protests last year, and they were giving out shirts, and the team ramped up prices for that. It's like, come on. I get it. It's a business, but like, what are we doing? You know, so the A's continue to be the bottom of the barrel ownership-wise of Major League Baseball. I cannot wait for them to get out of Oakland. I feel bad for the fan base there. That's really all I can say about that. It's a tough place to be. But to wrap things up, just a recap on everything here. To answer Will Carpenter's question at the bottom, also, Will, thank you for answering my question. Sutter Health Park is where the A's will be playing. But to answer his question, yeah, the Rockies need to sell everything. Not everything. Getting ahead of myself. They need to sell everything that is not considered a rebuilding asset. All right? Anything that is getting close to your 30-year-olds and beyond, anyone that doesn't fit within the current young talent rebuild within the positions that they need, which is pitching, really. You know, you've got Tolia over at first base. You've got a couple decent outfielders. You're kind of stuck with Chris Bryant over. You're going to move him to right field most likely because of Tolia at first. Blackman's in as your DH. You've got RyMac up the middle. You've got, you know, some good kind of pieces in your infield. Catchers are gone. Got to get rid of a catcher, if not both, and pick up as many pitchers as you can get. That's my quick little 30-second tidbit on who the Rockies need. Hopefully they make some moves, right? We've got a couple more days. We're going to do one more trade show on Monday, talking about all things trade deadline. And then Tuesday, that's it. That's July 30th, and we are done with the trade. So hopefully the Rockies, we get some news. But by all means, follow us on Twitter at DNVR_Rockies to keep up with all the Rockies news. Also follow me at CJJ Saez, spelled S-A-E-Z, on Twitter. I'll be keeping you guys posted throughout the weekend and the week on all the good Rockies news and beyond. We have a good time over here at the show. So from myself, our awesome producer, Tiff, and our entire crew at DNVR, thanks so much for hanging with us here at the Toyota Lounge. Come hang with us for some Olympics coverage. We've got the Olympics watch party on Sunday, Serbia and USA. And if we don't see you there, we'll see you next time right here on the DNVR Rockies Show.
mayor.